All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. This is the MyVideoBag podcast that we have every Friday on the first Friday of each month. My name is Danny. My name is Joe. This is Danny.
And we're live.
And we're live. And this is MyVideoBag podcast. We're joined today with a really special guest, Filippo Rivetti from Timeflees. And he's actually based in Sydney, so he's about 16 hours ahead of us, but we made it work as far as our time difference. And so we're currently doing this on a Google Plus Hangouts, but we are also streaming live to our MyVideoBag account via Instagram. So we really appreciate everyone for joining us. If you'd like to check out the conversation throughout, actually on Google Hangouts, just go to YouTube and search MyVideoBag, and then you can see the broadcast. But otherwise, you can check us out just through the live link on our Instagram. So thank you so much again, Filippo, for joining us today. For anyone who might not be following you, definitely should. You do a lot of great work, especially in the time-lapse, hyperlapse realm. So why don't you just give us a little bit of background and our viewers on just how you got started in photography / filmmaking, hyperlapses, time lapses, and then we can kind of talk a little bit more.
Sure, thanks guys. So as you were saying, my name is Filippo Rivetti. I specialize in time-lapse and hyperlapse photography. I'm actually originally an engineer, so my career started a bit differently. And after working a few years in project management, I decided, well, I realized my real calling, my real passion was photography. So I started, as probably everybody started, as a photographer. And as you know now, there are so many photographers around, everybody can call himself a photographer. So it was a bit difficult to make something out of photography. So I got into time-lapse photography a lot, and I really found my passion in that. So I started and I produced just, while I was still working as an engineer, I produced the hyperlapse and time-lapse video about Sydney. That's the city where I live now. It is called Time to Sydney. And because of that video, I kind of got people start knowing about me, and I got called to produce a video about Liguria, that is a region in Italy. It was a very interesting project where they called 7 filmmakers from around the world to produce a video to promote this region of Italy around the world. Then after that project, that is called Little Liguria, one thing got after the other, and I got called from Expedia to realize something similar about Sydney. And from that, it's probably one of my most famous videos. It's called Tiny Sydney. And then it was just kind of a word of mouth, one project after the other. And I got, start working with big clients like Princess Cruises, for example, or the tourism government and destination here in Australia. And pretty much it's just word of mouth, I would say. I got lucky enough to have probably this Tiny Sydney video that got so viral, and it got me so much other projects and jobs out of that. And probably because it got Vimeo staff pick as well. And because of that, I must say I really got a lot of work. So it's actually a 4 or 5 years old video, and I still get people calling me and say, "Oh, I love your Tiny Sydney. Let's work together." So that's pretty much my story, I would say.
Cool. So now the time in Sydney, that you said that was through Expedia, or what?
The very first one, this Time to Sydney, is actually a personal project that I done, and it's been done over a couple of years where I was just trying to get the best sequence possible in the best situation around Sydney, and I just put together this video. It's not really, doesn't have a story, just showing off, let's say, the best techniques, the best sequences that I shot in Sydney. So this was just a personal project. Then after that, produced this Little Liguria, and that was done through the Italian tourism agency of the region. And then Tiny Scene, yes, that's been done for Expedia.
Very cool. Now, are you from Italy? Because I do hear a European accent.
Yes, I'm originally from Italy.
Oh, very cool.
You can tell from my accent, and I moved to Australia about 10 years ago. And that's where I live now in Sydney.
Oh, very cool. So yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about, you know, you shared with us some of the things that you have recently, you know, in the past, what got you to this point. What are you currently working on, or what type of projects you have in the pipeline that you're excited about, and you know, that kind of you're working on now?
Okay, I just actually finished producing a video for Princess Cruises. It was a very interesting project. It was a 7 weeks cruise around Asia, like one of their newest ship. It's called Majestic Princess. That was traveling from Rome all the way to Shanghai in 7 weeks. Fortunately, I was busy with other projects, so I joined them pretty much about mid of the trip. So I started from Singapore, and I stayed with them for 4 weeks of the cruise. The ship was cruising from Singapore to Shanghai, all the way passing through Vietnam, Korea, Japan as well. And I realized a 3 minutes hyperlapse video about the experience, about showing all these places that the ship has been passing through. So it was quite an interesting project. Shot mostly run and gun because we really had very few hours in every location. And so there was no much time for for storyboarding or anything else. So it was pretty much this kind of project. But it's really interesting if you want to check it out. It's on my page, of course. And at the moment, well, I just finished producing this video. So at the moment, I'm actually going to Bali in 1 week, where I'm going to do some video about Bali. So I'm going to be there for 2 weeks, exploring the country. And I mean, it's a beautiful place. I've already been there a couple of times, but I always find new places to film.
Very cool. Now, you were saying that you know, you're producing this video. Do you usually, when you get contacted, do you usually produce the whole video, or do you sometimes just get contacted to produce, let's say, a hyperlapse portion that's going to be in a large? What's your experience as far as that is concerned?
Okay, usually, and this is my favorite kind of thing. That's what I love to do, is to do the whole thing. So I get contacted by a client and ask me to produce a video, for example, about the location, and I do everything from the storyboarding to the filming, editing, a little bit of sound design as well, not the music. And this is my favorite kind of project. So where I usually have a lot of freedom, or artistic freedom, where I can really create a project from scratches. Many other times I also get asked to do just a specific sequence, for example, for some TV commercials, for promoting some brands, where there is already a video production going on and they just want me to do that specific hyperlapse sequence, for example, a specific time lapse from day to night or from night to day, so something very technical and very specific. But pretty much both things that I do. And also I have a lot of stock footage, so companies just want to license the stock footage to include in their production. So these are probably the main 3 things that I do.
Okay, cool. Now, since MyVideoBag is a very gear-centric brand, so to speak, we're really focused on the gear behind filmmakers, and specifically, but definitely photographers, in the sense that a lot of hyperlapse, time-lapse stuff is really just making a video out of a lot of photos. What gear do you use? Camera, lenses, sliders. What in particular gets you the best results for doing your projects?
Okay, honestly, to tell you the truth, when I started with some kind of basic equipment. You don't really need the top of the line thing. So my first camera that I started to use was a Canon 7D, for example, and I still use sometimes but of course I kind of upgraded a little bit in the last time. So I'm using mostly Canon, as you can see. So my main camera is still a 5D Mark III. That's the main camera. It's got almost 2 million shots on its shutter. I replaced the mirror and stuff, but it's still working very great. Then I'm using, depending on the project, a 5D SR, where I need to have a lot of resolution. I need to really crop it into the picture and when I do all my editing, zooming in into the sequences. And my other camera is a 6D. Still, for what I do, exactly the same result as a 5D Mark III, honestly. It's a beautiful camera. So mostly it's Canon DSLRs. For the video part, sometimes I do video as well on a gimbal, for example, and I use a lot Sony Alpha 6500. That's a really little camera, but beautiful and gives some perfect 4K video, for example. And talking about lenses, my favorite lens, and it's probably one of my most used one, and it's a wide angle. It's a Zeiss 50mm 2.8 manual lens. That's my most used lenses for hyperlapse and time-lapse and landscape in general. Pretty much, I would say I use it 60% of the times. That's the lens on my camera. My other lenses that I use, if I need to go a bit wider, and I got the 11-24 Canon f4. Very difficult lens to use. Gives very, very particular kind of image, of course, because it's so wide that sometimes it's difficult even to hide the feet of a tripod. But I don't use it that often, but it's really good. And then my other lens that I really love is the 70-200 IS f2.8. This has been everywhere with me, and when I need to shoot a bit more far into the distance, getting some particular buildings, for example, this is my other lens. Talking about sliders and motion control, the that I use is dynamic perception, stage 1, with a stage R for a tilt and pan. I'm most used slider at the moment. I have other slider like a smart system slider brand. Actually, it's really, really good. It's a bit easier to set up and everything. So if I need to be in a hurry, that's my other slider that I use. The reason why I chose the dynamic perception is stage 1 is probably mostly because of its ability to be disassembled into pieces, about half a meter pieces. So I can travel with it and I can take it everywhere. That's probably one of the very few sliders that gives me this opportunity. And since I'm traveling so much, it makes a big difference. In the past, I used a lot the Emotimo as well, Emotimo TB3. And I'm actually thinking about maybe investing in the Spectrum as well. But not too sure because I'm really getting an amazing result with the stage R and stage 1 at the moment. So this is pretty much all the equipment, the basic equipment I use for my time lapse.
How small does the dynamic pack up to? I've
okay,
like before.
Let's see if I can find it around. I can show you. It's really, I mean, just the rails themselves, so the slider, without all the other gear, can be packed very, very small. Talking about half a meter sections. So as you can see, 1.5 meters of rails, and you can see compared to my hand, very, very small. Of course, there is the cart and all the other gear together, but just talking about the slider itself, it's packed very, very small compared to probably, like this is the smart system one in its bag. It is even shorter one, but it's definitely takes up more space than the other one. And, you know, it can mean a lot, especially when I'm traveling to a remote location and I need to put everything in my backpack. The dynamic perception one allows me, you know, to just take and just, you know, put it in my backpack and then just assemble it on location. So it makes a big difference.
What percentage of the time lapses that you do in the hyperlapses utilize like the motion sliders, or like what percentage are you doing like tripod shots with like anchor points and moving around the tripod and that sort of thing?
I would say probably about 35-40% on a slider. And that's when I'm probably recording a shorter period of time, like sunset or maybe just some clouds during the day. So, I really want to give some interest in the scene with this movement, this parallax effect. And depends, of course, on the project as well. While when I'm maybe recording something a bit longer, so it can be a day to night that lasts a few hours, then I just fix on a tripod. And this is a bit, let's say, easier to set up as well, because you don't really know when it's going to finish. So it can be an hour, can be 2 hours. So this gives me a bit more freedom to not have to set up exactly the movement. And also I can do a lot, especially when I use the 5DSR, I can do a lot of cropping and movement in post. So hyperlapses, I would say, when done, when I have time and it's professionally done for a client, 90% of the time I'm done on a tripod. That gives the best effect on a hyperlapse compared to a handheld one, because of course I can introduce blur into the images, I can use filter to have longer shutter speeds, and this gives a much better end result compared to handheld hyperlapse. Of course, the time involved is very different. So if you, for example, look at the video that I was telling you I've done for Princess Cruises, that was all the hyperlapses, 99% I've done handheld. Was no time to set up a tripod, no time to actually shoot an hyperlapse on a tripod. And in many places, you're actually not allowed to use a tripod. So shooting handheld is the only option. Very tiring, but it's good anyway.
What sort of programs are you using, either in post on your computer, or if you have any apps that are helping you out there in the field shooting? Do you have any recommendations in that realm?
Okay, starting from the app, probably my most used app is called the Photographer Ephemeris, TPE. It's a very nice and easy app to use. I use it just to plan my shoots regarding something like sunrises, sunset, moon phases, and stars. It gives you the direction where the sun is and the moon is rising and setting in every single location and time in the world. So it's really, really handful to plan your shoot. And I use it most of the time, pretty much. This is on talking about app. Once we get on the computer, I use many programs. The first one that I use is called LR Timelapse. It's probably from the way I'm shooting, it's very important. The program is actually the way I shoot is because because I use this program. So I shoot in the Holy Grail technique. So I kind of manually adjust the exposure when I'm shooting, for example, day to night or night to day. And this program gives you a perfect way to adjust all the exposure compensation and create a fluid movement between the exposure. Once I use this program, I usually import all the pictures in Lightroom. Well, it's together with LR Timelapse to kind of give a look to the picture. And once the sequence is done this way, it's imported into After Effects. After Effects is probably my main program that I use, not only to render out the time lapses, but also to create transition, to give any kind of special effects and everything. And then once everything is done, sometimes I use Premiere Pro as well. It's a bit faster to actually edit the sequences together and get a preview. And then it works very well with After Effects as well. And that's it, nothing else.
That's awesome. That's a pretty cool workflow there. We've dabbled a little bit with the LR Timelapse, but it's pretty amazing what that program can do as far as exposures goes, and like fixing it over multiple photos. So we saw that like your Instagram is very cool the way it's branded and how you kind of have it organized. And if you look down your Instagram, it's like photo, video, photo, that sort of thing.
That's cool. Thanks.
Say that branding your own Instagram is like extremely important, and how much of that kind of like gives you business?
It's very important. I must say I probably started a bit late into this social madness. So as you can see, I don't have many followers on my actually main account, that is Timeflees, and where I show all my creative stuff. I actually have many more followers in my behind the scene account. That's probably the one you are more interested in, where I show all my equipment or my behind the scene shots, whatever is happening behind any filming that I do. And I found out is actually people are more interested in knowing, what's happening behind the shot than actually the shot itself. So my probably biggest post are where I show all my equipment and what I use for a shot and the reason behind it, more than the actual time-lapse sequence that I generate. But I say it's very important, definitely, to promote your business. But at the moment, I don't get that much revenue, let's say, back from Instagram itself. The most important thing is probably the video, the final video that I post on Vimeo or YouTube, that can get much more attention. And usually when I get contacted by clients, it's because they saw the video on Vimeo and YouTube, not because they saw some post on Instagram.
Awesome. Okay, well, trying to think if I have any questions. This is a good question. So, being that you've been in this realm for some odd years, if you were to tell the younger you what you know now, what would you tell him getting into time lapses and specifically hyperlapses? Because it is, while it seems easy, there are some tricks of the trade that make those come out better. And I'm sure over the years you've learned how to make those as good as they can be versus when you first got started.
Well, if I could go back in time, it would help a lot, I would say. I would definitely start much earlier. If I could do what I do now, 7 years, 8 years ago, it would have been a big difference. But suggestion is always just to, give your best and just try to produce something that nobody else has ever done. And, you get recognized once you do something like that, and it always works out. It's not like, just wait for a client to contact you and just ask you to do something. If you want to start, just do it for yourself. Do a personal project. Just put all of yourself into it, and you're definitely going to be recognized if you have talent, of course.
Cool. Well, I think everyone has a really a better understanding of kind of where you come from, what you're doing. How can someone reach out, find more information about you, contact you if needed? Please share your information so we make sure that we can drive the right eyeballs to you.
Yeah, I would say definitely on my Instagram account. I'm always reading all the messages, answering back. So that's at Timeflees. That is TIMEFLEES. That's my main account, or Behind the Lapse. That's where I post on my gear picture. Or you can just go on my website as well. It's exactly the same, timeflees.com. Okay,
perfect. Well, Filippo, I really appreciate you, getting on early morning on your Saturday. We really appreciate it, and look forward to keeping in touch. We've posted a number of your flat lays as well. That's kind of how we originally found you. So definitely keep sending us those as you go around different locations and travel areas, and we'll definitely make sure that we get your info out there so that more people can enjoy the content that you're creating.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure for me too, and being able to arrange this conversation from the other side of the world as well. And I'll definitely keep posting and tagging you in all my posts. Don't worry.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you so much again.
Okay. Yes. Have a good day. Bye-bye.